For around 500 years, the Romans extended their rule over Gaul, a vast swath of Western Europe spanning what is now France as well as parts of Germany, Switzerland and the Low Countries. Over these centuries, the region was transformed from a patchwork of tribes into an integral part of the empire, and the legacy of Rome still lives on through language, institutions, and more tangibly through architecture. Some ancient buildings, like the Maison Carrée in Nîmes or the Aula Palatina in Trier, have been remarkably well preserved, and offer us a direct connection to the distant past. Yet they are the exception to the rule. Across Gaul there once stood numerous proud monuments that could rival or even surpass those that remain today. Over the course of history, these buildings have been severely damaged or disappeared entirely. But through archaeology, ancient accounts, and early visual records, it's possible to reconstruct what they once looked like. From the ceremonial sanctuary where provincial elites gathered, to a Gallic Colosseum hidden beneath modern suburbs, and one of the largest bath complexes in the entire empire, these are just some of the many lost monuments of Roman Gaul. We begin in the southeast of France, just inland from Monaco, at a place called La Turbie. This small town, perched high on a ridge overlooking the sea, is the site of an imposing Roman monument called the Tropaeum Alpium, or Trophy of the Alps. Visible for miles around, it was created as a bold statement of imperial power, marking both a military victory and the border between Roman Italy and Gaul. It was commissioned by Emperor Augustus around 6 BC and celebrated the defeat of 45 Alpine tribes that had long resisted Roman control. Standing beside the Via Julia Augusta, an important thoroughfare, its soaring height and commanding position made it a striking landmark, impossible to miss for travelers entering or leaving the Gallic provinces. Rising nearly 50 meters, the structure would have been about as tall as the Statue of Liberty, if measured from heel to the torch, and consisted of a square base topped by a rotunda of 24 columns. At the summit, it was crowned by a likeness of Augustus himself, while an inscription on the base below listed the names of the subdued tribes. Over the centuries, the Tropaeum suffered significant damage. Having been reused for defense in the Middle Ages, it was partially blown up in 1705 during the War of Spanish Succession. Afterward, the trophy served as a convenient quarry, its stones being reused in the local church. By the modern period, little of the building's ancient form remained. But in the early 20th century, efforts were made to recover some of its lost grandeur. During the 1930s, the monument was partially restored thanks to the patronage of an American philanthropist called Edward Tuck, who wintered in nearby Monte Carlo. Directed by the architect Jules Formiger, the project re-established the building's presence in the landscape by piecing back together some of its columns, base, and cylindrical core. That being said, it remains far from complete, an evocative ruin hinting at its original form. The Romans first began to extend their domain across the Alps over a century before the Tropaeum was built. Seeking a land route to their territories in Spain, they captured the southern coast of Gaul in 121 BC and began to build a road cutting across this region. Known as the Via Domitia, it would become a vital artery of Roman control, and alongside it, the colony of Narbo Martius, or modern-day Narbonne, was founded. Named after Mars, the god of war, it was the first Roman colony established beyond the Italian peninsula, and quickly rose in importance, becoming the provincial capital of Gallia Transalpina. With its strategic location on the Ord River and access to a lagoon port connecting it to the Mediterranean, Narbo also developed into a thriving center of commerce. By the early empire, the city boasted a population in the tens of thousands, and featured all the hallmarks of Roman urbanism: temples, baths, an amphitheater, aqueducts, and a grand forum. Located at the center of the city's orderly grid, the forum was dominated by Narbo's most imposing monument, a vast temple known as the Capitol. Positioned at the northern end of the space, it was dedicated to Jupiter, Juno, and Minerva, just like the great temple on Rome's Capitoline Hill, and thereby asserted a symbolic link between the colony and the mother city. Constructed during the reign of Augustus and built from gleaming Carrara marble, the Capitol was designed to impress. Standing on a high podium within the walled enclosure of the Forum, it is estimated to have measured 48 by 36 meters and was surrounded by columns nearly 18 meters tall. Including its podium, the entire structure may have reached an exterior height of around 36 meters, more than twice that of the Maison Carrée in Nîmes. During the Middle Ages, the temple and many other ancient buildings were sadly dismantled and quarried for stone, leaving few vestiges of Narbonne's Roman past above ground. But archaeological excavations, particularly beneath a school known as the Collège Victor Hugo, have revealed column drums as well as remnants of walls and plastered ceilings. Remarkably, some elements destined for the capital have also been found in a shipwreck off the coast of Saint-Tropez. The discovery was made back in the 1950s and shed light on the building's immense proportions. With the creation of Gallia Transalpina, Rome had secured a foothold in the south of what is now France. But this was only the beginning. In the 50s BC, Julius Caesar launched a series of ambitious campaigns that brought the rest of the region under Roman control. The newly acquired territories were organized into 3 provinces, known collectively as Tres Galliae, the 3 Gauls. Each of them had its own capital and governor, but the city of Lugdunum, or modern-day Lyon, served as a common coordination point for imperial administration. Placed at the junction of the Rhône and Saône rivers, Lugdunum was founded in 43 BC, and soon grew into a large and cosmopolitan urban center. It became the seat of a major imperial mint, the capital of one of the 3 new provinces, and a crossroads for trade, military logistics, and communications. But the city also played a crucial symbolic role. Beginning in 12 BC, Lugdunum hosted the annual Concilium Galliarum, a council of representatives from 60 Gallic tribes. The gathering took place at a purpose-built sanctuary on the slopes of the Quarus Hill and would have helped to bind local elites to the Roman world. Although based in part on ancient Gallic practices, it centered on sacrifices to the goddess Roma and the emperor Augustus, presided over by a high priest known as the sacerdos. This position was renewed annually and thereby offered a prestigious step in the provincial cursus honorum. The focal point of these ceremonies was a monumental altar which stood at the heart of the sanctuary. Though now lost, its appearance is preserved on coins minted in Lugdunum during the early empire. These show a rectangular structure decorated with crowns and laurel branches in bas-reliefs and topped with tripods. It's flanked by 2 columns that support statues of winged victories, each holding a palm branch and a garland. Nearby, a small amphitheater was also constructed, likely to host games and spectacles as part of the event. It was greatly expanded in the 2nd century AD, growing from 25 to 105 meters in width and allowing for a capacity of about 20,000 spectators. Around this period, a covered temple was also added to the sanctuary, either replacing the altar or standing in the near vicinity. However, since the building's presumed site now lies beneath an area of dense habitation, nothing is known for certain about its appearance. The amphitheater, on the other hand, was rediscovered in the 16th century. Although urban expansion in the 1800s destroyed its southern half, what remained has been excavated and integrated into a park known as the Jardin des Plantes. Remains of the altar, or at least the elements next to it, have also been discovered. This fragment of a gilt bronze laurel was found in a network of ancient tunnels running beneath the Croix Hill, and is believed to have once been held by one of the winged Victories flanking the altar. While neither of the original statues themselves have been recovered, a figure widely interpreted as a reduced copy of them was found at the bottom of the river Son in 1866, giving us a close approximation of their appearance. The columns that once supported the statues may also have been preserved, albeit in altered form, at the opposite end of the city. It's speculated that they were recovered in the 11th century, cut in half, and reused to support the crossing of the Basilica of Saint-Martin-d'Inay. If so, the darker columns closest to view here would have once stood at the heart of the ancient precinct. The first high priest of the sanctuary was a man from the Aedui tribe called Gaius Junius Vercondoridubnus. The Aedui lived in what is now Burgundy and had long been on friendly terms with the Romans. Their first alliance was struck already in the 120s BC, and the tribe largely supported Caesar during his campaigns in Gaul. Despite this, they briefly joined Vercingetorix's uprising in 52 BC, and it was at their capital, Bibracte, that the chieftain was elected leader of the Gallic coalition. After his defeat at Alesia, however, the Aedui quickly reaffirmed their allegiance to Rome and were treated with clemency by Caesar. Their capital was left intact, and in the following decades, it went on to prosper from manufacturing and trade with the Mediterranean world. At one point, Bibracte is believed to have had over 30,000 inhabitants, and yet, during the reign of Augustus, the ancient stronghold was gradually abandoned. Around 15 BC, the emperor founded a new capital for the Aedui, some 25 kilometers or 16 miles away from Bibracte, at a key junction on the road between Lugdunum and the cities of northern Gaul. Now known as Autun, it was originally called Augustodunum, a combination of the name Augustus with the Gallic word for hill fort. Made as a statement of Roman power deep in the heart of Gaul, it was designed as a model city, with a regular street grid, public baths, a forum, and numerous temples enclosed within massive walls stretching 6 kilometers long. Once built, Augustodunum made such an impression that the historian Tacitus described it as sister and emulator of Rome. One of the monuments that helped it earn this title was the vast theatre. Built into a hillside on Augustodunum's eastern outskirts, it was likely the second largest in all of Gaul. With a diameter of 148 meters and a capacity of somewhere between 11 to 14,000 spectators, it would even have been comparable in size to the Theatre of Pompey in Rome, although surpassed in terms of architectural splendor. Abandoned in the 5th century and quarried for stone in the Middle Ages, much of the building has nonetheless survived to the present. Following a restoration in the early 20th century, it has even regained its original function as a venue for cultural events. Next to it, however, there once stood a structure of similarly grand dimensions that has almost completely disappeared. This was the amphitheater, Augustodunum's answer to the Colosseum. Though smaller than its Roman counterpart, at roughly 155 by 130 meters, it still ranked among the largest in the empire, and shared the title of Gaul's most expansive arena. Likely built at the same time as the theatre in the 1st century AD, it could seat up to 40,000 spectators, and would have hosted gladiatorial games with fighters trained in a dedicated school nearby. Excavations in the 1840s revealed vivid traces of these spectacles, including the skull of a lion slain in combat and an iron device for restraining animals. During the 17th century, the last vestiges of this imposing building finally vanished, and today the site of the amphitheater is covered by suburban housing, but visual records of its appearance still remain. In an old book about Roman ruins, we find this remarkably complete view of the building, showing its lavish facade and a cross-section of the interior. However, by the time the book was published in 1719, it should have already been dismantled, which makes me doubt the accuracy of the illustration. A more trustworthy depiction survives through this rare copy of a drawing from the late 1500s. It preserves a closer view of the weathered remains, as they would have looked shortly before the monument disappeared forever. By the 3rd century AD, the period of relative peace and prosperity that followed the Roman conquest of Gaul came to an end in an empire-wide crisis, characterized by foreign invasions and a rapid succession of rulers. Despite periods of renewed stability in the following centuries, most Gallic cities never recovered their classical grandeur. Ambitious civic building projects were abandoned, and attention shifted to creating fortifications that often cut through or even used as building material the proud structures of the previous age. One city that defied this trend and even reached previously unseen heights in the late Roman period was Augusta Treverorum, or Trier. Though now located in Germany, it once belonged to the province of Gallia Belgica, and for a period of about 100 years, beginning in the late 3rd century, it prospered as an imperial residence. Strategically situated to defend the Rhine frontier, it was home to several emperors, most notably Constantine the Great, who along with his father, Constantius Chlorus, endowed Trier with a series of magnificent buildings. The most well-known of them is the Aula Palatina, which formed the audience hall of the imperial palace. Though stripped of its original interiors, the shell of the building has survived almost intact to this day, making it one of the best preserved monuments of its kind. Nearby, Constantine also built 2 Christian basilicas, making up the largest ecclesiastical complex in the West outside of Rome. One of them was replaced by a Gothic building in the Middle Ages, but the larger of the 2 still partially survives as the core of Trier Cathedral. Another project initiated during this time was the construction of a bath complex at the southern end of the palace. They were never fully completed, however, and after decades of neglect, the half-finished structure was remodeled in the late 4th century, possibly to serve as barracks for the imperial cavalry. After the fall of Rome, parts of the building were incorporated into the city's fortifications, which protected them from later quarrying. Today, the restored remains of the so-called imperial baths still stand and offer a sense of the building's original grandeur. Yet, despite their impressive appearance, they were not the largest bath complex in Augusta Treverorum. That distinction belonged to the much older Barbara baths, located to the west near the Moselle River. Built in the latter half of the 2nd century, this sprawling complex covered an area of 42,000 square meters, making it one of the most extensive in the Roman Empire at the time of its construction, possibly second only to the baths of Trajan in Rome. Modeled on similar buildings in North Africa, The Barbara baths would have been lavishly adorned with marble, artificial grottos, and imported sculptures from Italy. In addition to a variety of bathing rooms and pools, the complex likely also included cultural and leisure facilities, such as libraries, dining areas, shops, and beauty salons. The baths would have been in operation until sometime in the 5th century. After this, they were gradually dismantled and gave way to the development of a suburb called St. Barbara, to which the complex owes its modern name. Although no remnants of the ancient building survive above ground, excavations in the area have revealed its foundations and subterranean service tunnels, shedding light on key technical details like sewer and heating systems. Today, visitors can view these remains from a footbridge running across the site, while information panels offer insights into their function and help evoke the bath's original splendor.